Searching for God. It was ninth grade when I found my interest in Persian poetry. I had an interest in classical poems which taught a kind of ascetic philosophy called irfan. Some Iranian poets encourage meditation on the original condition of man's relationship with God prior to his fall. This method of exploring thoughts and feelings through a simple lifestyle was meant to bring man closer to God. The irfan encourages a life of deprivation and isolation, and encourages a critical mindset towards secular and religious leaders who promote religiosity and hypocrisy. The irfan encourages people to attain a life of purity and love. It also condemns the killing of all life forms, even an ant. Some poets describe the cause of humanity's despair as having been brought about by man's separation from God. This is the cause of all suffering and pain. In Iran, people esteem such poets as those who are able to reach God because they have preferred a simple life. The reason that Jesus is revered in Iranian poetic culture is because of his simplicity and his sacrificial love. Jesus Christ has served as the greatest of all models of inspiration of this ascetic style of poetry. Why? He did not own anything, not even a pillow, while he was in this world. This embodies humility and unconditional love in its purest form. This is yet another example of how God has left his witness in the culture of those who were not searching for him. God allowed himself to be found by those who had not heard his gospel, and yet, through cultural means, Persians were able to see the beauty and value of Christ through their poetry. As a young man, I loved the simplicity of these poets' lives. I wished to be wise and lead a simple life as they did. I desired to be unaffected by the pain, heartache, and struggles of life. Of course, as I have continued my walk with Christ, I see that asceticism and isolation are not the answers, that the pain and suffering I endure with Christ make me more like him in respecting and loving others. Deep in my heart, I long to leave the confines of my surroundings and travel across the world. I wanted to know God in the context of the world. Somehow, I imagined that as my horizons expanded, so would the simplicity and purity of my relationship with God. I wanted to enroll in a different high school where I could major in Persian literature and poetry, paving the ground in myself for more investigation in the future and establishing myself as a noble spiritual man in irfan. My family's financial constraints prevented me from making such a move. Ultimately, I limited myself to desires of reaching out into the world and discovering the spirituality that I felt I had lost somewhere. It was a very vague thing that I was searching for, something tangible which I could not flesh out in my thoughts. Of course, I had no clue that I was going to find the way. It wasn't going to come to me as I imagined it would. My family life, along with its particular struggles, did not allow me any extra time to pursue irfan or to study the lives and philosophies of the ancient poets in any depth. Everyone in my family except my father was busy working hard just to survive. I was very concerned that the harshness of my reality would force me to quit school, so I worked even harder to make money for the sake of paying tuition and supplies. As I was struggling to make ends meet, the desire to pursue irfan was growing stronger. I see now that the difficulties and struggles of my life were a complement to the lifestyle of self-denial that was the mark of irfan. One can learn many lessons from a harsh life. In my spare time, I spent countless nights staring at heaven and expressing my heart to a God that I did not yet know. I hope to one day experience what I instinctively knew would be peace through the knowledge of God in my heart. I did not yet have enough knowledge of Islam to be able to understand whether the desires of my heart were in line with Islam's doctrine, but I was thinking in my heart that I could go to God, that I could reach him if I tried hard. I didn't know that my sin created a wall between me and God and separated me from him. Nor did I know that I was unable to bring this wall down and reach God. Only God could shatter this wall and reach me. All of my understanding of God was what my imagination had concocted. I thought that if I tried my best, he would help me to reach to him. Of course, any time I thought about barriers, I felt helpless. I lifted my eyes and heart to heaven, seeking help from the Creator whose name was still unknown to me. Throughout my life since ninth grade and until I believed in Jesus Christ, I experienced a never-changing dream. I was flying through the sky, and an unknown voice always warned me, "Do not look down to earth, look at heaven always, or you will fall and die." In my dream, if I did look down, it was a horrifying experience. I would begin dropping to earth like a stone faster and faster until I reached a terrifying speed that finally woke me up. When I dreamt again, sometimes I remembered the consequences of looking down. I was obedient to that voice and kept my face toward heaven and enjoyed that piece of flying. Years later, in the early days of my Christian life in Turkey, the words of the voice in my dream presented itself in a Turkish Christian. Yara bakan dushar, guga bakan yashar, which means, anyone who looks at earth will fall down, but the one who looks at heaven will live. He recited this Turkish poetic wisdom to me when he heard about the bitterness in my life. I was shocked and amazed. He shook his head in opposition to the unfriendly approaches of this world. With amazement, I asked him, "What does this poem mean?" He responded, "The prince of this world is Satan, but the prince of heaven is Jesus Christ. If we put our trust in him who is in heaven, we will not fall into the chains of Satan." His words made me wonder for years whether there was a supernatural mouth speaking to me. I found that my dream was fulfilled by the intervention of Jesus Christ in my life. Those who fix their eyes on heavenly things will soar with Christ as eagles, but those who cast their eyes upon the earth and its desires will fall and die eternally.